Hi, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are in the world. Today, I have the very hyper and super fun guest, Justin Jones-Fosu. And, Civility Partners is focused on building positive, thriving work environments. I like to say we're sort of adjacent to DEI, so love having my DEI experts on. Thanks, Justin, for being here with me today.
I am super pumped, and I prefer high energy than hyper. My mom used to call me hyper. So I said,
Okay.
Mom, it's high energy because people actually prefer it and like the energy. All right.
Yes. Okay. I apologize. Yeah, hyper is like the not so good version of that.
Correct.
Yes. Okay. The very high energy, and indeed
Right.
he is. So if you check out workmeaningful.com, which is your website, you can find some really great keynotes that are high energy. So, talk to me about the inclusive mindset. So, you've written two books, one of which is called The Inclusive Mindset. So, can you just give us kind of an overview of what that book is about? And I've got some questions for you about it.
Yeah. So, I mean, really, it starts from, for me, the backstory of doing DEI work for about 20 years and realizing I was doing a lot of it wrong. And I started surveying a lot of people and asking, are we approaching the everyday person the right way to help them to grow? And a lot of the
Mm-hmm.
work that we found happening was a very deficit approach. It was like, it's 2022 and you still struggle with? And I'm like, yeah, I still struggle with stuff.
Yeah.
And that was demotivating. So what we created is the inclusive mindset was really this catalyst place for the everyday person to be able to engage in um, inclusive behaviors, postures, character, and really just make it a part of who they are and not
Mm-hmm.
something extra that they had to do. So that's what it's designed to do. It's not a hardcore academic book. It's not for the hardcore DEI folk with DEI and B tattooed on their left arm. It's made for the everyday person to help them to grow in meaningful, strategic ways around inclusivity and becoming more diverse.
I like what you said there. That sometimes DEIB feels like a extra thing we're supposed to focus on outside of ourselves,
Right.
and I hadn't thought about it that way before. So I appreciate that perspective. So can you give us a tip or two about how can I start to become more inclusive in my mindset?
Well, the first thing I'll ask is what type of hugger are you?
What type of what?
Hugger. What type of hugger are you?
It depends, but I generally like to give really big, good hugs.
Yes, Catherine, right? Which is funny because that's actually the first chapter of my book, right? It's called What Type of Hugger Are You?
Okay.
And really what that means is because it's all different types of huggers. There's, the nice formal handshake, hello. There's I'm dap you up. There's I'm going to hug you. My body's not going to touch you hug. And there's that full embrace that you talked about.
Yeah.
And that's what we challenge people as a tip is how we approach this conversation matters. And if we approach it from a lukewarm, like, it's kind of nice to meet you, we're going to get that same lukewarm response. We're not going to get a lot out of how do we grow in true diversity and inclusion. But when we embrace it with this full embrace, this I'm going to hug you with everything I have. By the way, don't do that in real life unless you get permission. But like you embrace somebody in that way, that's the same way. And so let me give you a great example of one way to embrace it in this way. We challenge people to have deep, meaningful conversations with people, to learn and hear the stories of others. And so, a practical strategy that we've challenged people to enlarge their circles is the thing we call 1MC over W. Now, it's a mathematical formula that I hope is the only one you'll have to do do
Yeah, I'm
but
like, I don't do math, so explain it. I'm a
1MC,
communications person.
yes, I'm going to give you math today because I was 99th percentile when I was growing up. Okay. But 1MC over W is simply this: one meaningful connection per week. We
Oh,
challenge people to put into their calendar, build in 15 to 20 minutes where they're hearing the stories, the perspective of others in their organizations, in their communities, and learn about them. Ask them about them. What brought them to you? What brought them to your organization, your university, your whatever place you may be? And you may say, well, Justin, that's a lot. That's 52.14 times a year. And I'm like, yes, you are astute and very right. But what if you just flip the W upside down and made it one meaningful connection per month?
hmm
And you built it maybe a longer period of time. Maybe it's a lunch or a dinner where you better understand and hear the perspectives of others. This allows us to dive deeper outside of our circles of not just those that we're comfortable with and we agree with, but to hear the perspectives and journeys of others, even if we disagree with them. So that's one practical strategy to make it a part of our everyday reality instead of something extra we have to do.
I like that. And we're all, in business, so we're making connections anyways. So to tap into those connections even more so, it doesn't have to be extra. Like you said, if I have a coffee with someone, I could make part of that conversation, more about hearing from them and their perspectives. I like that. That makes it feel a lot easier than. So I have a question for you though. So I'm white fragility. I'm in the DEI space.
Wait, you're white? I didn't know you're white.
Like what I just said. I am white, okay. But so I feel like I'm very much around the space. I'm an expert in workplace bullying, so that's why I say I'm adjacent. I'm kind of equal opportunity, treating people with respect, conversations versus helping certain groups come up. But I still experience that white fragility. I can feel it sometimes, and it's like, what do I say or do? So, and I ask this of all my experts that are on here, and I am always trying to find the answer because I want to do it right. Right. So for those of us out here who might be experiencing those feelings of nervousness around these conversations, how do I start to approach a conversation like that? So how do I, if I'm meeting someone for coffee, for business stuff, and then I want to kind of start going down this path of having a more meaningful connection with them.
Yeah.
What does that look like?
So first, I think we have to redefine what diversity is.
Okay.
And we automatically go to the big three, right? Race, gender, and identity. And that's not all diversity is. And that's one of the misnomers, in that we've excluded whole groups of people simply by defining as these big three. The reason I know this is because even, we did this during the primaries of 2020. Like we were in Iowa, we're headed to New Hampshire, but wait until we get to more diverse states. And I'm like, no, like there's so many things, whether that's socioeconomic, geographical, heritage, things that are part of the diversity conversation. Now, it doesn't negate the importance of the big three, especially at certain times in our society. But first, all of us are a part of that. Now, which leads me to saying this, y'all, I get nervous too. In areas of growth that I don't know about, in nerves, even as I speak to corporations and organizations, it means I care. And so as I lean into the nerves, I challenge people to embrace one of my favorite fables growing up. And this is simply what it is.
I can't see it. Oh, the tortoise and the hare.
The tortoise and the hare, right? It's one of my favorite fables. Now, what did we call the tortoise growing up, Catherine?
Slow.
Right? The tortoise wasn't slow. We have mislabeled the tortoise. The tortoise was only slow compared to whom?
The rabbit.
The hare.
Or the hare, yeah.
But the tortoise was strategic. And my encouragement to people is, first, we have to see that this is not I have to get this perfectly right thing, right? That's a very fixed mindset thing. Hashtag Carol Dweck, right? We have to be perfect. We have to have all the right answers, but we don't want to do the wrong thing. There are going to be times where we make mistakes, where we're learning, where we're growing. As a parent of two high energy kids, one of the things that I consistently encourage them to do is to lean in, learn, and make mistakes as they develop and grow. So that's one side of the equation, is that we have to approach it from a very growth mindset of, I'm going to learn. There's going to be things I get wrong, but the focus is, am I making meaningful progress? That's one side of the equation. The other side of the equation is for sometimes my underrepresented groups, is that we can sometimes be so harsh because we expect everyone to know everything about our group, what they should know, our letters, the acronyms, the things that we live by. And we forget ourselves that there are things that we don't know, that we are uncomfortable. One thing that I've been challenging people, like, hey, did you know that when you're hashtagging something, yes, my LinkedIn folk, that you should be actually capitalizing the first letter of every word? Because those with reading disabilities, their software can't pick up all lowercase letters.
Wow.
See, this is a part of the conversation of how we develop an inclusive mindset. So there's things that I am learning and growing. The question is, are we making meaningful progress? And that's what we aim to do in the inclusive mindset, is to help give people roadmaps, practical strategies to grow. You're not going to be perfect in everything. right?
Yeah.
I still make mistakes, and I've been doing this work for 20 years. I still have wrong thinking, but how we grow matters. And that's what I really want to challenge people to do. Not if you're going to be perfect, because you won't be,
Yeah.
but will you choose to make progress and grow?
Yeah. Your comments are bringing up some emotions for me because I had a client where so we go in and do a workforce survey, and then we work with what we call an action team, which is made up of a variety of levels and people and everything, to dive into that data and then figure out what do we need to do to make change. So one of my clients, this action team had one woman who is blind, who was so frustrated by there were two people of color on the team who were so focused on that
Yeah.
she ended up quitting because she was just like, I'm diverse, everybody's
Yes.
diverse. Why
Yes.
do they keep bringing it back to? And then one of them in particular was so she just kind of took up so much space with the things she wanted to say and get out there in the action team, which I was struggling with wanting to give her that space. She obviously had a lot of passion behind what she was going through and her life experience. But
Right.
so it's scenarios like that where, and then when I would try to talk to her about, kind of, hey, there's a lot of other people in the room. We got to make space for everyone, was kind of like, how dare you keep me quiet, you white
Yeah.
person. And that's the kind of stuff that I feel like perpetuates white fragility, right? So
Mm,
if she had been more accepting of my feedback for her, maybe I would be a little bit less fragile. But it's those kinds of where it's like, I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. I'm just
yeah.
trying to do what I was hired for. So I don't know. And the other thing you said about how we all are diverse, I was at a DEI program the other day, and we did these little anonymous sticky notes virtually where we had
Mm,
to type in the things that we knew made us sort of privileged or helped us out,
yeah.
and then things that that were struggles that others maybe didn't know, like going through a divorce or struggling with sobriety or all these other things. And so we have to think about everybody's needs when we're thinking about DEIB. So when you work with clients, do they always focus on those kind of main three, as you called it, or the big three? Or talk to me about
Yeah.
what you do with clients.
Yeah, so we're very clear on our lane, right? And we are but one approach. We're very honest and open about it. We are catalysts. That one of I think I love one of my mentors, Susan Johnson, who's the chief diversity officer for the Hartford. And I love what she said. She said, Justin, you're an onboarder. You help onboard people into the conversation. So our focus is this macro aspect of diversity and inclusion.
Mm-hmm.
And what I found is that when we were rightfully trying to solve many of the ills of many of the micro areas regarding things like race and gender and ability and generations and all these kind of things, is that we leapfrogged over something super powerful. And that's the macro. Is that how do I value difference? Because diversity in the simplest form is not those micro areas. It just means difference. You can't be diverse by yourself.
Right.
It takes two things for something to be diverse. And so how do we value difference for difference sake? And so what we go in is we help people to expand the circle so that everyone sees they are a part of diversity and inclusion, no matter what they look like, what they believe, what their backgrounds are. Because we know this from Leadership 101, is that if I don't feel like I'm a part of something, I'm less likely to be a part of the solution.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we see happening in our society. We
Mm-hmm.
have large groups of people that are saying, oh, that's their problem.
Mm-hmm.
But it's all of our problem because we're all a part of the conversation. So I have to recenter many of my clients to help them to see this is including all of us. Now, how we go about it and dive in matters. Now, let me give you this piece. So we deal with the macro. Great. Now, after the macro, we challenge them after their time working with us and we see meaningful progress. We encourage them to look over the next course of 2 to 3 years to identify specific micro areas that they
Mm-hmm.
can dive deeper into
Mm-hmm.
because that's helpful. But we often start at these micro areas, and then people get pushback because they don't understand even why this is important because they
Right.
haven't impacted this place here.
Right.
They've only gone after here. So that is our approach. We go after people's hearts to help transform, to see the value of difference and how difference can actually make them better, their organizations better, and increase the beautiful unity of our communities. But then we encourage them to dive deeper into the micro areas that they may need to focus on. In some places, that's been women. right? And other places, that's been different generations. For some, they need more accessible organizations. For others, it's been things around increasing underrepresented groups, whether it's been Black or Latino or whatever that might be. Those are some of the things that the practical ways forward. So macro, then dive into the micro. Without that, it's hard to get buy-in from people.
Right, right. When clients reach out to you, is it because the CEO or somebody has realized we're not doing enough here? Is it because something happened that, for me, it's often the CEO got slapped in the face by something. They've known about a bad culture for a long time, but finally something makes them go, oh crap, I have to spend money on this. Which is hard. It hurts because I feel like all CEOs should care about their people and shouldn't be just about the business case. So I'm curious about your work. Are you in a similar boat or?
No. Early on in the work that we were doing, that probably was more true. But what we've often found is that if it's a response to something punitive, then people are normally still check the box people.
Right.
And we're very clear, we don't work with check the box organizations. When we work with companies, we let them know we just don't do one presentation. We have a series of 12 modules that we walk through to help people to make meaningful progress. We're able to assess growth. We're able to do our pre-test, post-test to be able to measure what's been the significant growth as they move forward. So right now where we are, we don't take on clients that we feel just check the box. And so it's normally the CEOs, executives, and or teams who have a heart and passion for it. And they want to find a way to help reach their everyday employee, their everyday team member, right? Not their superstar DEI folk, but the person that wants to engage, wants to be more inclusive, wants to be an ally, but doesn't know how, or feels really scared to the conversation. Those are organizations that tend to look us up.
All right. I like that. Yeah. I, a long time ago, decided not to do CYA trainings anymore. I love when I get the call. We have a couple bullies. Could you do a training on bullying? I'm like, no. Or I had one, we have a bully. The CEO loves that person. Could you train everybody else how to be assertive? It's like, no.
Right.
Oh man, yeah, check the box is difficult. Do you feel like, so when you're interacting with employees, you're really feeling that they're passionate about wanting to be an ally and learn and grow, kind of in general, or is it because the CEO has sort of sent that message down?
I think once we've redefined diversity for people and people see that this is not some extra thing they have to do, that it includes them, that it's not, our approach is not a shame-based approach. Yeah, let's be real. I can't tell you how many times people have come up to me and said, thank you, because I felt like I've grown, but I didn't feel like I was being beaten up as I was doing it. And unfortunately, what a lot of DEI training and workshops and speakers, it comes from a very deficit approach, and it's focused on the things that people are not doing well, right? Now, let's imagine that for a second. Imagine you're in a relationship, right? And every single time you come home, they tell you all the things that you're doing wrong. At some point, you probably are going to figure out a way to leave that relationship, whether it's actually leaving it or just checking out.
Right.
Versus our approach is a very abundance approach. And it's approach of like identifying ways that people have done this before, ways that they've been successful, even in areas of comfort, and then encouraging them to keep growing, to expand, to get better. For motivational theory, that is a more motivating approach to help people to grow forward versus continuing to, this is what you're doing wrong, this is what you're doing wrong, this is what you're doing wrong. And so our approach is that. So when we redefine it, we then find that people are more likely to find ways that they can consistently get better and grow and challenge themselves to have meaningful progress. Because the last thing I'll say on this is in our research, we found that there are two places that people do not learn, right? Less likely for them to learn. It's called the inverted U. When they think they know absolutely everything, and when they think they know absolutely nothing. And so we help people to onboard into the conversation so that now they can start diving into some of the areas that, whether they're experts or other people are talking about, to help them to make more progress around many of the macro but also micro areas.
Yeah. I love that. So you're starting with the assumption that everybody has empathy, everybody cares about each other, and we're all diverse in some way, shape, or form, and that we can grow from that place versus you're not doing this, you're not doing that. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I love
Because we have
that.
empathy for somebody, right? We
Yeah.
we care about somebody, and even if there's that one weird family member
Yeah.
that at Thanksgiving that we're like, I'm not excited to see them, right? Like we still have empathy for them. So if we can showcase and show that, what if we looked at expanding our circle
Yeah.
and expanding our circle, not even just the people we agree with. And this is what I wholeheartedly believe is that real diversity and inclusion is not that we always agree with people. It's that we respect people when we disagree with them. And my heartbeat, my passion statement for this is that I believe that we can vehemently disagree with someone's ideology while passionately pursuing their humanity. And
Mhm.
we have lost the art of respectfully disagreeing in our society, and we're bringing back the humanity and respect. And to your point, a little less bullies.
Yeah, we're working on it.
Yeah.
I'm sure you see this too. And I was talking to an employment law attorney friend yesterday. The shock never wears off. Every single day, almost something happens. I'm like, really? Even though I've been in this work for so long, that thing should shock me, but it's still like, really? You said that? Really?
Yeah.
What's wrong with you? I don't verbalize
Yes,
that to my clients, but
yes. Think about it for us. There are still things that we do wrong. There are
sure.
still things that we say to other groups that are off-putting, that we didn't say the right thing. And that's what allows us to have more grace with people because we realize, man, I did say that was actually kind of stupid what I said last week.
Yeah.
So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So give me some more tips from your book about the inclusive mindset. So one thing I can be doing is really focusing on having meaningful conversations. What else? Give me another tip.
Yeah. So one of the things that we talk about is challenging our double Dutch style communication. And what we found is, okay, just in case you don't know what double Dutch is, like a single rope is like this,
Yeah.
double Dutch are two ropes like this, and somebody waiting to jump in like, right? Like that's double Dutch, right? And what we find is that people are often trying to jump in. They're waiting for the person to like take a breath, take a breath, take a pause. And this is why I disagree with you. They're like, all right. And what we've created is a simple framework, a model called the power of three. And in our research, we found that as people listen, they only listen to what we call the power of one or the power of two. So simply we'll go like this, Catherine. I'm like, Catherine, how are you doing today? Oh, I'm good. I'm good too, Catherine. That's power of one. Power of two. Catherine, how are you doing today? Oh, I'm good. What made you good? I was talking to this bald-headed speaker. Oh, I remember that bald-headed speaker. It's power of two, right? The power of three is like, hey, Catherine, how are you doing? Oh, I'm good. Like, what makes you good? Oh, I'm talking to the bald-headed speaker. Oh, like, what were you talking to him about? Oh, I was talking about the power of three, one meaningful connection per week, how we can make diversity. Is there anything else that I should? And that's where we're challenging people to listen to the power of three, where they at least listen to the third level of the conversation so that people feel valued, seen, and heard. Because we often, in efforts to actually make connections with people, we end up taking control.
Mm-hmm.
So the power of three is one framework. And one other one I'll give you that people have really been leaning into is what we call the Circles of Grace Challenge. Now, one of our modules is just completely the Circles of Grace, why we see people in events the way that we do and what to do about it.
Mm-hmm.
But we started challenging ourselves first and then others to take the Circles of Grace Challenge. And this is simply this. I started off this way. Every 6 months, I would go to events, experiences, or I engage with people in either which I didn't know a lot about or that I disagreed with.
That's
And what
hard.
it began to do, but this work is hard.
I love
Our
it though.
lives are hard, right? We're not asking people to do easy stuff because that will never grow and expand our circles.
Right.
But
right.
when we
I love
lean
that you
into
did that.
those moments,
Uh-huh.
we go asking two questions. One, what did I learn about this event, experiences, and this group of people? Or two, what did I learn about myself as I experienced them? Now, I haven't left every Circles of Grace challenge believing what I've heard from the other groups. There's some things I still disagreed with, but it allowed me to hear firsthand from people instead of running into assumptions based on second and third hand information.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the beauty of how we begin to respect and value people, even those we disagree with.
So you're saying we should talk about religion and politics at work?
And in your communities, and but we talk about it in a way. No, I'm actually
Right.
not kidding.
No,
But we
but
talk about it in a
in a way
way to
that
better
works.
understand. So
Right.
if I am of a different religion, right, and I'm asking, or of no religion, I may say, hey, like, what got you into your religion? So I'm not trying to have a debate with this person.
Right.
I
Right.
go with the aspect of hearing something that I've never heard before. I take on the posture of a student. And that allows us to have some of these tough conversations, not because we're trying to win the argument, but
Right.
because we're trying to learn that person's story. And that
Right.
allows us to have those conversations. Yeah.
Right. And I was joking because most people don't do that. If you start talking about, I mean, I wrote plenty of blogs when Trump was running for president the first time, because that
Yeah.
was such a big to do. And so I was writing a lot of blogs and doing a lot of interviews around for HR, how do you help
Yeah.
people manage their super emotional differences
Yeah.
that we may have every day, but they were really heightened in those moments. And that is the answer, that encourage people to talk about it, but in a way of, well, tell me why you are voting for this person. I want to understand more, as opposed to
Yeah.
you shouldn't, because it's just take in the information, have a conversation, and at the very least, you can walk away with maybe a little bit more understanding of why somebody would vote for the opposite side. I had oh, my phone's going off. I'm so sorry. I used to teach public speaking, and there was a woman in the room who, many years, there was a woman in one of my classes where it was a very small class. There was maybe 10 ladies in there. And one of them came up to me after school or after class one day and says, I'm sorry I don't speak a lot in here, but I can tell that you're all very liberal, and I am Mormon, and I feel a little uncomfortable. And I encouraged her to give her persuasive speech on the Mormon religion. And she was pretty nervous about it. But, I really appreciated the way she did it, where it was a nice example of, she shared how she feels and why she feels that way. And at the very least, I walked away, a little bit closer to understanding that religion, versus like, oh my God, that's so wrong. And da, da, da. And by the way, I grew up Mormon, so that might have helped the conversation. I'm not Mormon now, but just having those more like, I'm curious conversations versus I'm going to try to convince you. We have a comment. I was wondering where all our comments are. What a refreshing approach and insight. Here I was just yesterday frustrated with The Lost Art of Disagreement, and now I have my next book to read. So there you go. We got you a reader.
Oh, and I'm going to give you another book. So we're going to get 2 books. Are you ready?
Okay.
Right? Because
yes,
really our whole concept that we've talked about called communicating in gray, right? Because we've made it in our society everything black and white. But it really it's gray. It's not 50 shades of it, but it's gray. And the beautiful thing about this is I read a book during my MBA process, right? And it was one of the best books ever read about diversity that had absolutely nothing to do directly about diversity. And it was a book called Dialogue, The Art of Thinking Together.
Okay.
And William Isaacs is the author. And I love that book because it began to plant seeds of how we could, instead of arguing for A and arguing for B, and we're just, that we start asking, how do we create C together? And any of the work that I've seen of groups that are opposing, that have different views or ideology, that have been able to still work together to value each other, to see and respect each other's humanity, are groups that found C together versus protecting their own A or B. Yep. And so that's communicating gray. So for another book after the inclusive mindset, or even before it, is check out Dialogue, The Art of Thinking Together. Really good book.
Sounds like collaboration is essentially what that is, that you have A and B has their own needs, and you've got to find some new version of that. I love that. Correct. Could we get all of the politicians to read that book, do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I would love for them to, but they probably, to be honest with you, they probably wouldn't be in office because, I mean, most politicians, if you pull them the curtain, they're like, we actually agree on most stuff, but we have to feed to our bases. So my politicians, I'd love for y'all to read it, but I also understand that you're trying to really focus on your base and getting them energized. So that's why I don't do politics. I'm not a politician, not a politics guy, but I love everyday people who are making change.
Yeah, by nature of that role, you have to pick and be very strong and talk a lot about certain topics that other people may not agree with. So, well, thank you so much, Justin. I really appreciate you joining me today and giving us some insight. I'm going to start really focusing on my one meaningful connection a week. I think I probably do a lot of that anyway, but I'm going to approach that a little bit differently with that more on top of mind. So, and then Keith said, correction, now I have 2 books to read. So, all right.
Awesome,
Well,
Keith.
thank you so much. And you all can reach out to Justin here on this page where this is recording. He's on there, or go to workmeaningful.com. There's no link down below. Up here. Yeah. Little American Idol action. All right. Thank you so much. And thanks all for listening.